What's up everybody, it is I, Hero Vange, and welcome to another Pokemon Go PvP Tempest Cup video. Now this is gonna be my post-Tempest Cup tournament analysis of the best teams that were used in the tournament that I participated in. If you haven't seen that video, check it out over there. Now you see in the tournament that I joined, there are 6 people sharing the top 3 slots. There's the guy who won, there's 3 people who tied for 2nd place, and there's 2 people who tied for 3rd place. Let's start off with the guy who won. This is his team. He has Quagsire, Lantern, Sealeo, Skarmory, Altaria, and Tropius. 5 out of the 6 top teams share this common pattern of having these 5 Pokemon. They have Skarmory, Altaria, Lantern, an Ice-type Pokemon, it's either Sealeo or Lapras, and a Grass-type Pokemon, whether it's Tropius or Abomasnow. Do you need to follow this exact pattern to win? No, not really. There is one outlier and we'll talk about his team later on. Now out of the top 6, we have 2 teams that are kind of similar. They follow the same pattern except they have, different grass types. Up top, we still have the guy who won. That's why there's like a number 1 over there. And down below is my team. It's, and I finished number 3 in that tournament. We basically follow the same pattern except he has Tropius and I have Abomasnow. Now the reason why we have very similar teams is because the guy who won the tournament is actually a very good friend of mine. We play and battle on the daily. Since me and my buddy here have different choices for the grass-type Pokemon slot, let's talk about who is the best grass-type Pokemon that I should bring to my Tempest Cup if I want to win. Let's talk about that. I'll make it super simple for you. Let's talk Tropius, Torterra, and Abomasnow. Now, if you want to win against Ice-Water-type Pokemon like Sealeo, Lapras, then Abomasnow is your dude. He doesn't care about the snow. He doesn't care about the cold. Tropius and Torterra do. If you want to win against the other grass-type Pokemon, then Tropius is your dude because he's got that flying attack. He's also bulkier than the other 2. Okay, alright, cool. But what does Torterra have? Well, Torterra has Stone Edge, and Stone Edge is super effective against flying, super effective against ice, plus not a lot of people talk about him that much, so I feel like people don't know that. And so you might catch people with a you know what I'm talking about? Surprise, boy! Now you got rocks in your nose. What's my advice? Which one should you bring? Honestly, and this is just my opinion, it doesn't really matter because I suggest that you do not bring them into the battles, okay? The grass-type Pokemon, they're for bench pressure. What that means is leave them in the back, let your opponent think about them, and do not bring them into the battles. Why? Because the ultimate Skarmory strategy is a thing. If ever your opponents bring the grass type, you can kind of be like, oh yeah, I'ma farm that grass. Oh, but for you guys, I would highly suggest that you do not bring them into the battles. Me and the champion here never used our grass type Pokemon in the battles. They were purely for bench pressure. Then is it still important to have a grass-type Pokemon? Of course! You need that bench. It's very important. Okay? You need that to be in the back of your opponent's mind. Alright? Should you have 2 grass-type Pokemon? I don't think so. I think you're limiting your team if you have 2 grass-type Pokemon. Now, the Pokemon that we chose for the last slot, the 6th slot, is Quagsire. And me and this guy really love Quagsire, but we played the tournament very differently. I was asking him like after, did you use your Quagsire a lot? He actually did not use his Quagsire a lot, and I did. I used Quagsire a lot for the tournament. He was one of my MVPs, and I highly suggest that you think of Quagsire when you're thinking of a Pokemon for that last slot. Listen, okay? Quagsire's coverage is almost the entire important metagame. He's super powerful. The only downside to using him is that he gets eaten up by the grass, but you already know how to deal with that because you watch my videos and you already know the ultimate Skarmory strategy. And so, think about him, alright? Think about him for that last slot. Alright, so moving on to the other top teams, we've got these 2 teams right here. Again, very similar. The one on top tied for 2nd place with 2 other people, and the guy below tied with me for 3rd place. And also, he's a very good friend of mine as well. Similar formula, but the difference is in the Ice-type Pokemon. The first one has Lapras, and I talked to this guy. He said that it was a Frost Breath Blizzard, Surf, so totally non-legacy Lapras, and the second one has Sealeo. So now, let's talk about the ice type choices for the Tempest Cup, specifically the water ice type Pokemon. So Sealeo, Lapras, and for Lapras, there's so many different movesets. We've got the Water Gun, the Frost Breath, the Ice Shard, the Ice Beam, and the non-Ice Beam. And yeah, there's actually a lot to talk about, but let's make it really simple. Sealeo and Lapras are two totally different Pokemon. You're gonna be using them in different strategies, and so I feel like it's not even worth it to compare the two because they're different. Sealeo is an awesome lead Pokemon that has a fast charging, fast attack in Powder Snow. It's got highly spammable body slams that's gonna cause your opponent to buckle and shield up. So it burns shields, and you've also got that Aurora Beam for the "What's up?" The one thing that you can do to make your team unpredictable is to have multiple lead Pokemon. That is gonna confuse the hell out of your opponents. So what I suggest that you do is you go look at your current lineup, see how many lead Pokemon you have, and if you don't have a lot, Sealeo. Done. Now let's talk about Lapras. Lapras is not a good lead. Why? Because you're gonna encounter Sealeo, and I actually caught a couple of Lapras with my Sealeo in my tournament, and I destroyed them. So Lapras, not a good lead Pokemon, not as good as Sealeo. Do not lead with your Lapras unless you see that your opponent's only lead Pokemon is Altaria. Then you might want to lead with your Ice type, maybe a Frost Breath or an Ice Shard Lapras. But the thing is, Sealeo can do it better, alright? Sealeo can lead better. Lapras for me is the type of Pokemon that you leave in the back and wait for a favorable switch in, or it's the type of Pokemon that you switch in to block something. Now, let's talk about the different movesets. What is the best water type Lapras? Obviously, it's Water Gun Lapras. Water Gun Lapras, no need for any legacy moves. It will do the job of a water type Pokemon, and on your team, I suggest that you have one Water Gun user. Now, if for some reason your Lantern doesn't have Water Gun or you don't have a Lantern, Lapras. The Ice type Lapras is where it kind of gets a little bit complicated, but I'm gonna make it really simple for you, okay? If you want DPS, pure damage as an Ice type Pokemon, then Frost Breath is the way to go. If you want a hybrid water Ice type Pokemon, then Ice Shard is the way to go. Now, why do I say that? Well, if you actually run the simulations, let me just go geek on you real quick, okay? Ice Shard Lapras actually loses to Tropius with 2 shields, alright? He needs that 2 shields. You will burn that 2 shields though. If he doesn't have that 2 shields, then you kill it with an Ice Beam. Frost Breath, on the other hand, ties with Tropius in the simulations, but as you've seen from multiple times in my videos, my Frost Breath Lapras can kill a Tropius 100% of the time, as long as I have 1 shield. So you go from losing with 2 shields with Ice Shard to winning with 1 shield with Frost Breath. Frost Breath is definitely the better Ice type DPS. But the thing is, Frost Breath takes 10 years to charge up a Surf. It's bad, dude. That's the reason why I didn't choose my Frost Breath, Ice Beam, Surf, Lapras for my team, because it felt clunky. Even though it is a Tropius Slayer, it didn't feel good. And so, if you're depending on your Lapras as a hybrid water Ice type, Ice Shard is definitely the way to go. For their last lot, they chose the Legacy Blast Burn Community Day Charizard, which is, I think, a pretty cool Pokemon. Now let's talk about him for a couple of seconds here. Now, I'm a fan of Charizard. I love Charizard. Definitely one of my favorite Pokemon. I know that a lot of you guys like Charizard as well. He's very popular, but the thing is, for the Tempest Cup, I feel like the risk of using him is way too high. You need to get him into the right position for him to work, and you need to invest shields because he cannot take a hit. Even like a neutral hit from something hurts. Now, another friend of mine, who is also an excellent PvPer, described Charizard like this. He said, Altaria is just a direct upgrade to Charizard, and unfortunately, I agree with him. Altaria can more or less handle the same things that Charizard can handle, and so I think that having Charizard and Altaria on the same team, it's just redundant. The team on the bottom belongs to my friend who I tied with for 3rd, and I asked him if he used his Charizard, and I'm trying to like remember what he said. It was either he never used his Charizard or He did use it one time, and that was one time that he lost. So I really don't recommend Blast Burn Charizard for the Tempest Cup. Moving on to the next team, we've got a guy who tied in second place with two other people. He's got the same formula. He's got Skarmory, Altaria, Lantern, an Ice type, and a Grass type. But his last Pokemon is Alolan Graveler. Alolan Graveler can dominate matches against Flying type Pokemon that aren't Tropius, Ice type Pokemon that are using an Ice type fast move, and also Lantern if it's using Charge Beam. It's got resistances to Electric, Fire, Normal, and Normal is important for Cileo's Body Slam, and a double resistance to flying attacks. But the scary thing about using Alolan Graveler is that it's weak to grass, it's weak to water, it's double weak to ground. That's a lot of the metagame. Now personally, I couldn't handle the risks. I couldn't handle the anxiety of using an Alolan Graveler on my team. I do have one that's for, PvP, but the thing is, there's just too much out there. I don't recommend you use Alolan Graveler for your team because it's just too much, alright? There's too much out there. But if you see a person with an Alolan Graveler, just know that he or she is very confident in putting that in their team. The person that I lost to had an Alolan Graveler, and even though I think that person lost 2 times, he was very, very good. He knew what was up. There's a high skill requirement in using something dangerous like this, but if you master it, I feel like it'll fly. But practice with it, okay? Practice with it. Don't blame me if you lose because you used it, alright? It's very, very risky. And finally, we have the last guy who finished in second, and his team is a complete outlier from the ones that we've been talking about. Yeah, he's different compared to everybody else. He doesn't have Altaria. What he has instead is Marshtomp and Alolan Ninetales. Now, Marshtomp is one of the Mud Boys, but I feel like out of the 3, he's the weakest for this metagame. Alright? So for this specific metagame, Marshtomp, I don't think you should use him. What I do recommend is Quagsire or Whiscash. Quagsire has the best coverage with that Stone Edge. He can hit a lot of things. He does have a ground move that charges much slower compared to Mud Bomb, but it hits like a truck. Whiscash is the bulkiest out of the 3. He's got that Pew Pew Mud Bomb, which is awesome for Lantern and also for shield baiting, and he's got the Hail Mary Blizzard, which if you hit on Tropius, Altaria will knock them out in one shot. Quagsire was one of my MVPs for the cup, and I highly recommend that you pick him up. Alolan Ninetales is a fancy fox, good looking Pokemon, and it does have its uses. It completely walls Altaria, it's got Ice type attacks for Tropius and Altaria, and it's also got neutral Psyshock for shield baiting. It charges pretty fast as well. It's pretty good, pretty solid pick honestly. Now for that last slot in your lineup, what do I recommend? We're gonna go back to Lord Quagsire, the Quaker, the rocker of the Tempest Cup. I feel like he is the best choice for that last slot because he hits a lot of things for super effective. He can bodyguard your Skarmory, bodyguard your Altaria. The only problem he has is the grass, and you already know how to handle it. That's what I prefer, that's what I recommend. But there's a lot of choices. I feel like you can play with that last slot. Just make sure to practice whatever you do bring into the Tempest Cup, and I feel like you'll do awesome. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned a lot. I wish nothing but the best for you in your Tempest Cups. If you win, maybe throw your boy a dedication shout out as you're doing your victory speech, or maybe just keep me in your thoughts as you're doing your victory lap with your crown and your sash and, happy tears in your eyes. Leave a like, leave me some comments down below, subscribe if you haven't yet, ding that notification bell, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys!